Hello, this is Shan Chandrasekar welcoming you to another delightful part of our programming. We have a very distinguished guest here in the studio with us today. She's quite a celebrity. She's accomplished a great deal at an extremely young age already. She's an outstanding artist. She's very well known in the South Asian subcontinent, of course now internationally known as well through her work in some of the biggest films that she's ever done. And now she's coming up as the director for the first time. We'd like to welcome to the program your favorite Nandita Das. Nandita, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Nandita, Canada is not new to you. You've been here before. You've acted in some films that were made in Canada here as well. Plus, you've acted in some of the outstanding hits that have been made in Bombay. Over 30 feature films in 10 different languages. Quite an accomplished artist yourself. Now, for the first time, you decided to become a director. This is your first venture, Firaaq. Tell us about this exciting new venture.
Yes, it's very exciting because I've come to Toronto many times with my films as an actor, and it's always exciting then as well. I don't know if they've been big hits, but yes, they've been mostly independent films with interesting subject matter. I've had the pleasure of working with Deepa Mehta, who's your Canadian director.
What I saw in the bedroom is a sin in the eyes of God.
Coming this time is a completely different experience. Coming as a director, it's almost like having your baby and showing it to the world. It's a film called Firaaq. Firaaq is an Urdu word which means both separation and quest. So I think there is an optimist in me and there is a realist in me, and that's why I've decided to keep both the meanings of Firaaq. It's basically set, it's a post-riot film where the aftermath of a riot and how different people, it's an ensemble film, so how different people react to violence and how it affects their relationships. And I think violence is a universal subject. While the film is very contextual, it's situated in India in a certain time period, I think it reaches out to world audiences anywhere because all of us are worried about the growing violence. You know, all of us are kind of grappling with issues of identity and fear and prejudice and all of that. So I think in many ways it does go beyond sort of where it's situated.
That's wonderful. You know, you've never been shy with respect to controversies. You're well known, to handle subjects, which have, which raise a lot of controversy in the community. In terms of the roles that you have portrayed, you're not afraid to act in certain types of roles. You know, you don't take the traditional heroine who just runs around the fountain and sings half a dozen songs, in a movie. And you've been established as a high-quality artist. Tell me about this nature of yours. Where did you get this? Was this something inborn in you because you come from a very illustrious family yourself? Your parents are highly accomplished. Tell me about your background.
Well, I did grow up in a sort of an artistic family. My father is an artist, he's a painter, and my mother is a writer. So, in fact, I grew up in an atmosphere where my mother went to work and my father would paint at home, and I used to think all mothers go to work and fathers cook and clean and for recreation paint. So I was glad that I had a role reversal when I was fairly young, and I didn't think that, mothers had to cook and clean and fathers had to earn the bread. So now I'm happy to have grown in that environment. But for me, forms of entertainment as a child or in my growing up years was theatre and classical music and painting. In fact, it wasn't ever films. So I had no idea that I would ever even get into films. And then I did my master's in social work. And
From Delhi University?
From Delhi University, and I was fairly connected to, these NGOs and working on social issues, especially concerning women and children.
Our lines cross each other. That is our destiny.
I kind of tried to keep a balance, and I think both my work sort of feeds on each other. The choices that I've made in my films are definitely influenced by the experience I've had in my human rights work. When you deal with stark realities, when you deal with people who have so little and you almost feel guilty for all the privileges you have, somewhere you want to portray those stories, somewhere you want to portray those trials and tribulations and those strengths and those struggles in the characters you do. And I think that's the reason why I've pretty much stuck to the kind of work that I have and that's why I didn't move to Bombay, which is where all the action is. But I stay in Delhi, and I try and keep the balance between the two. So I guess that's why probably I've been selective in the kind of work, and I don't think everything is controversial. I know this tag is attached to me, but I think a film should create a certain constructive debate where you can actually talk about the issues that are raised in the film. Otherwise, of course, you can have popcorn and finish a film, maybe cry and laugh, and which is also not bad. I think we all need certain amount of sort of mindless entertainment as well, or mindful entertainment. But there is lots more that's happening in the world, and we can't ignore it, and we can't be in our little insular worlds and pretend that's all that exists. So I think sometimes people say, oh, there's enough misery in the world, why do you want to show all of that in films? But do we really know about that misery? We only know about our misery. The world is becoming increasingly I, me, myself. So it's that attempt as well to be a catalyst in telling the stories of the people that I work with to a larger audience.
That's fantastic. Maybe the correct way of describing you, not on the basis of a controversial film or known for that, but maybe more for thought-provoking work that you've done.
Thank you.
मेरा नाम मोहन है, मोहसिन है।
जाओ बे जाओ, सीधा पाकिस्तान पहुंची जाओ।
What gave you the motivation to go into this particular subject? Because there are some risks involved when you deal with these kind of subjects, right?
Yeah, a lot of people are asking me that for your first film, why did you choose such a serious subject? You could have done something lighter, you could have done something simpler and easier. I don't think this film really started with the idea that, okay, I want to be a director, let me look for scripts. It really was that these stories, in my human rights work, I encountered these stories in different ways. Some I read, some I met people, some I experienced myself, and I think it almost compelled me to tell the story. It almost compelled me to direct. So it wasn't the other way around. And these are the stories, in fact, that inspired and pushed me to saying that, I've been telling these stories in other ways because I do talks in colleges and schools and other social forums. But I felt that somehow wasn't enough. I think I needed the catharsis more than anything else, and I felt that film is a powerful medium, and if I can tell these stories through a film, then why not? So I think I didn't see it as difficult or easy. I just felt like this is what I need to do.
In your background as a social worker is, when you talk of principle of confidentiality, when it comes to, a worker-client relationship sometimes.
Yeah.
But, but when you become a filmmaker, there are stories that are untold stories have got to be told.
Right.
You make a half-decent compromise between commercialism and community needs, right? So when you were put in that position, how did it work out for you because of such explosive subjects, when you're dealing especially based on riots which could have been instigated by religious differences in a secular society?
No, it is tough. The subject matter itself, the fact there are no song and dances, the fact there is not a typical hero. I've got wonderful cast, but they are not still the hero-heroine kind of a thing. It is tough, and for a producer to have faith in that is also quite remarkable. I've been lucky. Percept Picture Company are the producers, and when I first met Shailendra Singh, their head, and I said, look, I need a director's cut, I don't need interference, and I was kind of almost difficult because I wanted to make sure that I had that freedom to do the film that I wanted to, and I have to say that they haven't interfered at all. Like all these horror stories you hear of producers interfering and taking the final cut or saying, okay, put a song at the end and all of that. So I haven't had those, but yes, there are sort of unsaid pressures of finally a lot of money goes into a film, even though a small, medium, big, whatever the size of the film may be, you still have to, it's a lot to do with economics. You still have to reach out to the audiences, and that is the idea. I want to take it to as many people as I can, but you don't want to compromise on otherwise why do the film at all? So I don't think in that sense I've compromised. There are mistakes made, there are things to be learned, but that's all part of growing up, and it's just my first film, and hopefully many more films to come.
It's wonderful. Now describe your cast.
I have Nasiruddin Shah,
who's of course
who's
extremely
absolutely phenomenal.
Fantastic actor.
And there's Raghubir Yadav, who's also a very good actor. There's Paresh Rawal, who's excellent in the film, and Deepthi Naval. After many years, she's sort of acted in a film. And then we have Sanjay Suri. We also have Tiska Chopra, the girl who was in Tare Zameen Par as the mother of the child. So, and we have some new actors who are going to be very known very soon. There's Shahana Goswami, who's just come on Rock On, which has been released in India recently. I don't know whether it's come here, but she's in quite a few films. So she's done a great job. And there's a 7-year-old child who's absolutely brilliant, who I found in a school in Hyderabad. So it's an interesting ensemble cast. I have a great crew. I have Ravi K. Chandran, who's done Yuva and Kannathil Muthamittal for Mani Ratnam.
Oh,
He's
yes.
done Black and Savaria for
outstanding work
Sanjay
he does,
Leela
yeah.
Bansali. He's done Dil Chahta Hai. He's at the moment doing Aditya Chopra's new film. So he's one of our ace cameramen. We have a
Fantastic.
wonderful editor, Srikar Prasad, who's done, I think, last 6 or 7 films of Mani Ratnam, other than many other films as well. He's done Dil Chahta Hai and Gandhi My Father and many others. So I have 2 people from Chennai, which is probably your city. So we have a very good, cast and crew, and they were all very committed. They were all very supportive, and I've thoroughly enjoyed the process. Of course, it's also been very stressful, very challenging. I think I've aged more in this 1 year than I've aged in the last 5 years. But I think it's been well worth it.
Fascinating experience, I'm sure. You know, Nandita, when you were young acting, I'm sure there were people who inspired you, because the path that you have taken is, in the early days, it was the breakthrough that, people like Satyajit Ray and Shyam Benegal had done. Good commercial cinema, but at the same time, not that traditional cinema, within quotes. There is a box office formula, and there's also a film that can still make it a box office success.
Or at least break even.
Exactly. Now, at any point when you were actually acting in other films, did you have a sort of a thought at that time, I wish I could have an opportunity to express my directorial skills?
Well, sometimes, because when you're working on projects, sometimes when you hear a story or you meet a director, you don't know how it's going to actually shape up, and you go in thinking that it's going to be this film that you have in mind, or you see it as a vision, and then slowly as it unfolds, because there's so many factors involved, you realize it's not the film that you actually signed in for, and there's nothing you can do, and it is frustrating. And sometimes I have to admit, there are times when you say, oh my God, I would have done a better job, which is not a nice thing to feel, because you actually want to work with a director where you can have that confidence and surrender and say, wow, I know what he or she, knows exactly what they want, and I want to be part of the story. So I think, yes, some bit of that frustration was the cause of also wanting to direct, although I didn't know that this film would happen so soon and like this. But off and on I would think that, yeah, someday I'm going to direct.
That's wonderful. Well, you had the pleasure of acting with the Dada of the Indian film industry, I should say,
Yeah.
Amitabh Bachchan, in Aks.
अरे भाई तुम लोगों के लिए खुशखबरी लाया हूँ
फिर कोई नया चोर पकड़ लिया होगा
भवरा है ये लोभी है होशियार है भवरा है ये लोभी है होशियार है.
Our congratulations to you. You were also on the main jury, one of the few people from the Indian subcontinent to be in the Cannes Film Festival on the
Right.
main jury. Tell us about that. Again, congratulations.
Well, thank you. No, it was absolutely an honor and a great experience for me. And while the Indian press mostly talked about the clothes and this and that, what was really special for me was to be able to, just sit with 8 other sort of brilliant minds and discuss films. Because films are such a reflection of life and culture and everything. So each film we would take and we would deliberate on it and sort of share our thoughts and listen, and it was that part of it was the most incredible thing. And we had a great jury at that time. We had Salma Hayek, we had Javier Bardem, we had John Woo of action films, we had Toni Morrison, Nobel laureate for literature, and Emir Kusturica, who's a Serbian filmmaker who's won the Palme d'Or twice in Cannes. So it was a very nice, interesting mix of people. And in fact, Emir Kusturica came to me in the second set of deliberations and said, I thought you were a sweet little Indian girl, but you're not, which means you actually have opinions. So I told him I take that as a compliment. But I had an absolutely great time. And it's a great way of watching films. You sometimes see better films even in smaller festivals. It's not just the quality of films, but the quality of interaction and understanding that you create around the kind of cinema that, it's like a film appreciation course in 10 days.
Yeah. Talking of other festivals, you've also won awards in other festivals as well. Tell us about, your involvement in other festivals around the world.
Yeah, I've been to the Toronto Festival itself. I think I've come here 5 times, and 8 of my films or something like that have been shown here. I've been to the London Festival, Cairo, and sometimes it's nice to also go to the smaller festivals. Like I went to a Eurasia Festival in Kazakhstan, or a small festival in Italy. in I think Verona, that place was. Like, you know, sometimes going to sort of more intriguing places and interacting with people, it's always nice. I like going to festivals because although sometimes in India there's a lot of disdain. They're like, oh, it's a festival film. But festival is just another platform to show your film. And especially for films that are slightly alternate, you know, not so subscribing to the mainstream, it's a great platform for those festivals, because otherwise, which filmmaker wouldn't want a regular distribution? But you're not always fortunate to have that. So at least you reach out to as many audiences you can. You get some attention even in your home country for the film. So I don't look down upon them at all. In fact, I've made some wonderful friends over the years in these festivals and have kept in touch with them.
You've done some leading roles, and now as a director, which role do you like better?
Well, difficult to compare.
Or what's the difference between the two
Right.
from
The
your
difference
perspective?
is huge, I think, in a way, because as an actor, now looking back, it seems like a cakewalk, because you know, you go to the set, everything is kind of in order, you do your little bit, and you come out. You don't know what has gone into creating that whole environment, what is going to be after that. As a director, you realize the pre-production and the post-production. Post-production, you know nothing about, but the editing and the sound and the music, I mean, you, I'm sure, do it on television, and I'm sure transform sometimes problems and, you know, mistakes that may have happened in the shoot. You can edit them in a way that you don't see them. So there's a whole lot you can do in the post. So I think I, in fact, enjoyed the editing, one of the most things during this whole filmmaking process. And so I think directing is more challenging, it's more stressful. Every word in the dictionary can be in it. It's overwhelming, it's all consuming, it's killing, it's everything, you know. But it's still, you can tell your own story. At some level, you have not control in a power sense, but you have more say. If you truly want to be a communicator, you can sort of tell your story. But I would like to continue acting as well, because you want to be part of other stories. And you know, a film takes at least a whole year of your life, minimum. So I think as a stress buster in between, one should act in other good films and learn from that.
Nandita, you have exquisite communication skills. You've got the command of the language, you know.
I just say it from my heart, and then you don't have to think about the answers.
Oh, that's wonderful. And you know, the nice thing is you've also acted in multilingual films in
Yes.
India. You've acted in about 10 different languages. You know, India being a secular state of, you know, and multilingualism has been prevalent there for years. 17 officially recognized languages.
Exactly.
11 major religions. You know, people still coexist in the world's largest civil service.
Right.
So with all that, you know, and with over 1 billion people, it's
a
an
complex
incredibly,
country.
and the communication industry is now exploding. With the advent of private television in India, you know, with satellite signals beaming in from other parts of the country, with the invention of DTH services now into the Indian subcontinent, the arts industry is just on the threshold of a major, major takeoff there.
Right.
Now, in that scenario, there's lots of eyeballs available, you know, in terms of viewer discretion. Do you feel that young filmmakers like you with sort of concrete ideas have a tremendous opportunity now to produce, you know, the quality films that you really want, you know, deviate from the so-called formula and make it commercially very successful as well?
I don't know, I feel differently on different days, to be honest. Sometimes I feel...
Because there's a large middle-class audience now.
Yes, but there's a lot of money also being pumped in, and you know, like you said, it's on a threshold and good things are happening. At the same time, world over, people are wanting fun flicks, or they're wanting big extravaganzas, you know. For serious cinema, for films that deal with sort of serious issues, the market is still very small. It's still shrinking. It still takes a lot to actually convince producers and people to say that, look, there is, you know, serious cinema doesn't have to be boring. Serious cinema doesn't have to be something that tries your patience.
Yeah.
It can still be engaging. You know, entertainment doesn't only mean you have to laugh at slapstick humor.
Right.
Entertainment is when you actually feel engaged, you feel like you've invested something in it,
Absolutely.
and you come out with your heart and head stirred. And for me as an audience, I think that's important. So it's a bit of both. I think by just sheer numbers, the fact there are so many films coming out right now, I think some good pearls are going to come out and some surprises are going to come out, and some young filmmakers are, you know, experimenting a little more and trying out different ideas, because you can't have the same story churning out every second time. So it's a bit of that, but it's also not that easy. With lots of this stuff, people still want to play safe.
तुम यहाँ काम करना चाहती हो ना?
जी
तो समझ लो ये तुम्हारा इम्तिहान है. वहाँ जाकर जरा रामनाथ का मन बहलाओ.
मन बहलाओ?
I'm treated like a household pet and I take it. That's what hurts.
गरमास तो तने गले लगान से मिले है बावली.
दो टावर हो गया फिर भी गेला पड़ारी बात करो. Last year from Rome there were 3 films that were made and one of them won the Palme d'Or. You know, we make like 1,000 films, but why is our presence really not in sort of serious cinema world? And you know, Iranian films and Taiwanese and all these small countries are producing some incredible films. So I think while Bollywood, which is a very specific industry, which is I think, you know, huge amount of interest is in Bollywood, not just by Indians and Indian diaspora, but even by Western and other audiences all over the world, whether it's Japan or whether South Africa or whether even here. So that is there, but I think there's room for all kinds of cinema. We don't have to constrict ourselves to only one kind. There's space for Bollywood, there's space for, you know, other means of communication, and I do hope that there are more people who have faith in that and venture out and not play safe so much.
For instance, in Canada, there is a Canadian Film Development Corporation, National Film Board of Canada is there, and there's various other, you know, Ontario Film Development Corporation. There's tax credits that are being issued here for filmmaking, and there's subsidies being given by CTF, for that matter, Canadian Television Fund, for filmmakers who are interested in, you know, in coming up with, you know, exciting projects. Do you have similar projects in India right now? Because being such a large filmmaking country in the world, it's the largest of its kind in the world.
Well, it's unfortunate that the government or those bodies don't take that much interest. We have something called NFDC, which has produced some of the most fabulous films in the past. But if you ask for those same films, even DVDs of those films, because the next generation, the new generations hasn't seen it, and they wouldn't be able to find it.
Oh, wow.
You know, so it's such a pity. Now they're trying to revive it, and Om Puri, in fact, is the chairman of the NFDC now. So I'm hoping that, you know, many of his earlier films, Akrosh and Arth and all those kind of films have been part of NFDC, that he will revive it. But I think the pressure of it shouldn't only be with the government, it should also be with private concerns. And there are many now big players who are producing and distributing films, and I wish they would allocate at least some of their funds to well, thought-provoking, using your word, those kind of films. Like when we had multiplexes, when they started coming in, I thought, oh, maybe the smallest seater at least will be dedicated to more alternate cinema, to documentaries, to, you know, more sort of independent films from India and abroad, because there is an audience for it. It's not like it's not there at all, and the idea is to expand that audience. But unfortunately, it's not been so easy. We live in times where, you know, like money seems to be ruling everything, and money can only be a means to an end. It can, I don't think, can be an end in itself. But well, there are still some good people with crazy visions and great amount of idealism, and those are the people who are going to change the world. But I've also had the pleasure of acting with lots of good directors. I mean, talking of directors, as you said, I mean, from Mani Ratnam to Mrinal Sen to Shyam Benegal, Govind Nilani, Deepa Mehta, you know, a whole range of filmmakers whom I've admired, whose work I've seen in my growing up years, so it's been good. And yes, with some great actors like Amitabh Bachchan and Shabana Azmi and Amir Khan and, you know, Jaya Bachchan. I've worked with many of these people in different films in the South with Mammootty, and, you know, so I think I'm blessed.
Mani Ratnam has been here more than once, and he's an outstanding director.
Absolutely.
Tell me, because Mani saw your film now, Firaaq.
Yes, he was one of the first people to see the film.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to give it to someone who is a friend and has a keen eye, whose feedback I would truly respect.
Right.
And I gave it to him, and he said, I was almost scared. I thought it would be this arty film, and I wouldn't know how to tell you, and, you know, it's your first film. I didn't want to be rude. So I said, good, so what does that mean? He's like, no, because I really liked it. And he said, it's very pacey, and he had read the script, one of the early drafts. I'd given it to him just to get a feedback, and so I think that was very encouraging for me, because I didn't want to show it to a whole lot of people. You know, a film is something where everyone has an opinion, and which is worth respecting, but you then take from it what works for you. And he's one of those people that I truly admire and respect. So
tell me about, you know, Nandita Das when she's not extremely busy. You know, what's your hobbies? You know?
You know, to be honest, my work and life are the same thing. So I'm never really free, and I'm never really busy. Like when people say, what are you doing on Saturday night? And I say, well, you know, every day is a Sunday for me, or every day is actually a Monday for me, but can potentially be a Sunday. So I'm in many ways, you know, my own master, and I've never really sort of done a job where you have a 9-to-5 commitment. Of course, project to project, you have your own commitment, you're responsible. If I really have a downtime and I'm doing like nothing, I would like to do nothing, just to be. And I don't think we spend enough time with ourselves in just silence. So I think I try and do that. I listen to music. I love listening to music. It could be a classical music, it could be world music, it could be old Hindi film songs.
You sing yourself?
A little bit. I hum.
Yeah.
I mean, if you sing, then I'll sing along, kind of a singing, not really singing. And I like spending time with loved ones, which are family, friends, and yeah.
What are the interesting things that are coming up? What is different? Because every 10 years, sort of you see a change in terms of attitudes and generations, especially with the influx of the Western media and its influence.
Yes, globalization.
Yeah.
I, in fact, really enjoy doing it with, sort of interacting with students because they are more honest. There's something very fresh about what they ask. I also feel sad that they don't really have too many role models and they are kind of lost. There are too many pressures. Parents are telling them to do this, their peer pressure, this pressure of earning and making money and being successful in the quickest way possible is just way too much. And you kind of see a bit of fading idealism because at that age, there is some bit of idealism, but all these pressures have begun to come and they're like, oh, well, okay, I really can't do all that. So I like those interactions, and I do see there's a lot more focus on money and success, probably much more than when we were young. I think I was far more idealistic, and not just me, but my friends and the people I hung out with. In my college, I used to do street theatre, which is, doing it on a certain issue and just going out on the streets and in slums and colleges and performing.
Fantastic.
And we didn't get any money. It wasn't so organized. We used to, in fact, take a chadar, like a bed sheet around, and people would give whatever little money they would, and we would plow that back into a thing. I used to do Odissi. I used to learn a classical dance. I used to go for a Hindustani classical music class, and my day used to be packed, but that fatigue was good. I still slept better than probably I sleep today, or I feel others sleep today, because that was constructive fatigue. You did different things. You had a sense of, enjoying what you did. There was a commitment. There was a certain purpose to life. I feel that often there's no meaning to life. Like the young people, they are grappling with all of this. They're trying to be busy. They're trying to have fun. Every night they want to party and this and that. But there is an emptiness as well. Somewhere they're feeling this is not it, and maybe they'll do it later on. There's no best time. It's now. And in fact, the kind of time you get during college to do things. But universities in Canada or America still offer you much more. I mean, you can still do a psychology and a biology and theatre together. It's unthinkable in India. We are put with those blinders and compartmentalized so early on. How is a 15-year-old child supposed to know whether he or she wants to do commerce, arts, or science? You might like biology and history. What do? You can never. You have to choose. And then you end up choosing where you think you're going to get a career. So it's too career-driven. I mean, I'm grateful to my parents who never pressured me about this. I was luckily a good student. I topped my school and all of that. But they never pressured me about this. I did geography in my BA purely because I had a good teacher, and they never raised their eyebrows saying, what are you going to do next? It wasn't important. If you do what you enjoy doing, you will do it well. That's the confidence that I got from them.
I wish you all the best and God bless you, and I hope Firaaq is an absolute thumping success.
Thank you very much.
Anything we can do is for the asking.
I did come with a bit of trepidation. I have to make a confession. I thought, oh, okay, another sort of Indian company that is sort of narrowly looking at just, the same old Bollywood programs and the television soaps, which is fine, there's space for that. But seeing just from your questions and your own interest and your own background, I can see that this is a throbbing place. You're very open to doing different things. It's a meticulous premise. Everybody looks happy. I think that says a lot for the place, when people who are working feel committed and feel happy. So I think it's a wonderful idea, and you have a huge umbrella organization that has so many different things, and you seem like, as a person, you and your wife, you both seem like someone who genuinely wants to grow, not just expand in terms of numbers, but qualitatively grow. And I think that's a mark of any good organization. So I'm truly actually happy and grateful that you're going to help me support Firaaq, and I'm happy doing this interview.
It's a pleasure. Not only Firaaq, any of your future projects, you can take it for granted that we'll be behind you. Okay?
I have a partner in Canada now.
Absolutely. All the best.